Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and this video is gonna suck because I hit my head really hard today on something at work, and I'm still a little messed up from it. I've got a really bad headache, and if this wasn't America, I could afford to go to the doctor. Woo, America. But we're gonna get through this. It's, what the hell even is this? Part 2, I guess, of episode 5, they call him now. It's not chapter 5. I'm just reading what they wrote. Okay, so in this chapter, which was completely different than the other ones, a bunch of planeswalkers bitched at each other, and then Raph made jokes because they can't decide if he's the annoying bookworm that lies all the time or the comic relief little kid. Thanks, Raph. So Ajani planeswalked away to go find people who were a little bit less incompetent. The rumor is he's going to go pick up H.M. Murdoch, B.A. Baracus, John Smith, and Templeton Peck. That joke aged well. So Gideon's apologizing to everybody politely because he's apparently a low-T beta male just like Jace now. And basically they decide, well, we built the ship to fight the Cabal and Belzenlok. Honestly, I thought from the first chapter he was the one running the Cabal. So, yeah, they decided, why not? So Liliana asks her, oh, well, what's your interest in killing Belzenlok? Really? That's not obvious? And George is like, well, I'm not a planeswalker. I'm stuck here. So, I've been protecting this entire plane since, before the Phyrexian invasion. So, let's go take the Cabal out because they're the biggest threat, I guess. And then Liliana's like, wait, what? And George was like, oh, I'm older than I look. I think she's the one with some kind of time dilation thing and she doesn't age and it's like a whole thing. Don't think too hard about it. My head already hurts and I'll just give you a hint. That's not how that works at all. I mean, she'd be speaking slower even if it worked like that. So Raph waves at them, even though they've been standing right in front of him forever because he's a ruddy spastic. And so he's like, I'm new. I just started today, really, and I haven't met the others yet. I can the reading. It says, but Tiana's an angel of Sarah and Arvad's Arvad, but he wants to destroy Belzenlok too. They still can't decide if he's going to be like the kind of funny, awkward one or if he's the like nerdy, annoying one. So Liliana's basically like, okay, these people suck, but I'm even less capable of taking down Belzenlok than when I arrived because I used a chain veil and now I have chronic fatigue syndrome. Whatever, let's fly this ship directly up his ass or whatever they're planning. So they go down to a meeting room and Liliana tells them, well, I had a plan, but then 2 of our allies bailed, so now I don't. Gideon thinks they can get Chandra back if they can find her, and Liliana says, well, that's great, but her power still isn't enough to get us into the stronghold where he is. Without Nissa, we don't have the brute force. And it makes sense. I mean, brute force is kind of like Green's thing, and also she is very powerful. People just think, oh, it's like the druid class. She's practically a bard. Oh, Green. But Nissa is legit powerful. Very experienced in magic. I think she's pretty old, too. And Chandra's 22 and likes to burn things and blow them up. So if anybody has her phone number, send it to me. So Joyra tells them what she knows about the stronghold, which is that, it's constantly changing the way it's defended. The ways in and out are being destroyed and rebuilt on purpose just to make it super impenetrable. And they go on and on about the security and defenses. And at this point, I'm just picturing Gideon coming down on a rope, like Mission Impossible 3, and then there's sensors everywhere, and then he catches a drip of sweat with his hand so he doesn't set off the magic sensors. So their idea is to capture a high-level Cabal agent, somebody who has been to the stronghold and knows its current structure, so that before it changes they can get, a list of the traps and the best way in, and etc. So they decide, okay, Benalia City, where they still are, is the most impossible place to find any kind of Cabal agent or spy or anything because they're instantly found out and executed or whatever. And so Raph bounced enthusiastically and said, oh, I know. My God, this kid is annoying. The last time I was in Dominaria West, there were rumors about Cabal agents in the academy. It's not far, especially as fast as the weatherlight travels. We could be there before sunset. See if they've captured any. And then he gets cut off, of course. And so Liliana's like, oh, yeah, if they haven't, we might be able to flush one out of hiding. And Gideon's like, it's a good plan. So they fly to Dominaria West, which I believe is where the professor teaches English, something like that. And as soon as they, park the ship, I guess, on one of the highest towers, it drew some attention. So some important looking people, as they called it, were waiting for them on the balcony. And Liliana notices that Joyra looks kind of tense, and she's like, problems? And Joyra says, no, just an ex-lover I wasn't expecting to see today. Oh God, if you didn't think the story was going to go there, we're going there. Such drama. It's a trap, man. I'm telling you, if your ex sends you a text like, hey, we should hang out sometime just out of nowhere, take the battery out of your phone and run it over with your car. Are you ready for the 2-for-1 special? Liliana says, oh yeah, ex-lovers are more trouble than they're worth. They disappear and don't tell you where they're going and ruin all your plans. And of course, Gideon heard, and he says, I'm sure that's not what happened. Jace would never. And Liliana goes, it's none of your business. And then they say the last thing she wanted was Gideon's opinion on her love life. Oh, come on. I thought she just liked to tease Jace because she thought it was funny. There's no way they had a serious relationship. And plus, he's got his pirate lover now. And just like any other healthy relationship, he erased her mind and she doesn't know he exists. So they left the weather lake guarded by Tiana and Arvad, which, if any kind of stowaway spy tried to get on, he would get wrecked. It's actually pretty good crew choices. By the way, apologies if my mic is picking up something that I'm sure you've noticed at this point. I might be able to filter it out in post, though. There is, hail and, sleet. It's somewhere in between, just, pelting my patio door, which is right next to my mic. It is really loud. I stepped outside for 1 second, and the winds outside are just mental. So apparently Joda, Archmage Eternal, as the card says, he, I think, also doesn't age, probably for the same reason. I don't know. Apparently that's who she's not getting along with, ex-relationship or whatever. So they met with him and Naman, the Dean of Iteration. And Raph introduced them because I guess he used to study there or something. I'm sure they're just thrilled to death to see him again. And you know what I can't get over every time Raph shows up in the story? He looks exactly like Michael Jackson from Thriller on the card. I mean, it's him. It might as well be him. Clearly the artist was a big MJ fan, and I cannot get over that. Also, he looks about 25 in the card. That's a bit odd. So I'm sure this will go well. Joyra's like, hey, we found ourselves in need of, a Cabal agent, and we heard you probably have some here that you haven't caught. Gee, why don't you just insinuate that the kitchen has rats and cockroaches while you're at it? So immediately the two, staff members, I guess you would call them, they just step away and have a little chat by themselves. And then, of course, the Weatherlight crew's having a chat themselves, and they're like, yeah, I think Raph's probably right. They probably have some kind of problem here, and they know about it. So they finally agree, and Joda says, well, I'm not sure how much we can help you, but there is something we'd like you to take a look at. Hopefully it's one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. Yeah, you went there in your head. I know I did the second they landed the ship. Well, it turns out what they actually wanted to show them was a dead body of a, I guess, female student in blue and white robes. So Liliana, obviously zombifies her because duh, and then she's like, okay, tell us what you saw. Obviously, we've got a Moaning Myrtle situation here. Oh, by the way, did I say there was one body? There were 9. So they're trying to get a timeline, but it's really loose. All they know is something happened on a staircase, and now there's 9 victims or whatever. It must have been trying to catch a Cabal agent, or somebody found them out or whatever. And the one that Liliana resurrected, that's a little strong, zombified, she says, well, the floor turned into water, I sunk into it and couldn't breathe, and then there were serpents in the water. That's a hell of a spell. I have a feeling it was kind of like a phantasmal image thing where they just think they died, but it's such a powerful spell, illusion-wise, that they actually die. And Liliana's like, okay, that's wonderful, but did you see anybody? A face that you could remember? And she's like, no, the serpents. And so Liliana immediately taps her on the forehead and says, never mind, back you go. Ha, I knew it. Liliana says, okay, from what I've heard just from her, it's dementia magic all around, I'm afraid. It has to be a Cabal cleric, but none of the victims saw who cast the spell. See, they just thought they were dying, and then they died to death, or whatever. I don't know. Now, Shauna, who you might recall hunts Cabal clerics for fun, said this is not how they tend to operate. They're far more subtle than this because they have to be. Gideon's suggestion, and I do agree here, is maybe it's just a really stupid Cabal agent. No joke, that's what it said. Cabal cultists aren't the brightest bunch, And then Joyra says, then why hasn't this person been caught yet? True. So then Gideon says, oh, so you think this was a distraction then? From what? Who said that? Where did he even get that from? How did he even make the connection? That is an awfully big leap in logic out of nowhere. And he's referring to like something that nobody said. So they asked if there have been any other disturbances, and they said, no, we're on high alert now. We sent messages to the other islands. Oh my god, there's a dragon named Croesus, and their magic schools are on islands. This is literally Skyrim. Hopefully they go steal the Eye of Magnus. That thing's pretty cool. So this whole thing goes straight like murder mystery Clue, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it on Netflix, freaking awesome. Actually, I think it's on Hulu. One of the two. The original Clue movie is seriously awesome. So they tried to get like a timeline because they're like, okay, this had to have been a distraction, had to have been for a reason. I don't know. And they said, well, what did you do? Okay, well, we made sure the archives were still sealed. The magic traps were in place, whatever. And then Shauna says, can you tell us exactly what happened when the dead were discovered? And, Joda says, well, we tried to, we got healers to see if they could be revived. When they weren't, we determined that they were victims of spellcraft, so the bodies were brought to this laboratory for examination. Obviously said they could figure out who did it. And Shauna says, brought by who exactly? And Joda says, by the healer's assistants, which happened to just be some random students. So Joyra says, oh, that's clever. Raph, guard the door. I wouldn't trust Raph to guard my lunch in the refrigerator. So then Gideon says, we need to search. And then the story says it was a relief that their quarry might be nearby, trapped in the secure tower somewhere. Bit of a leap in logic there that the person would still be there after that much time in the tower, which may or may not have beds, food, and bathrooms. Like, what the hell? That is mighty convenient. What they should have done is went and interviewed every single student that was, bringing the bodies up with the healers and figured out which one was a Cabal agent. Oh, by the way, so Raph goes to guard the door, and because he's the, hyper genius intelligent one, he says, what exactly did we just figure out? Really? So Liliana spells it right out to him and says, this was the target all along, this place, or something here that the Cabal wants. So there's search around. Apparently there's 6 levels of the tower, and it's bigger on the inside than it looks from the outside because it's the TARDIS. And they're like, dude, this will take forever to search, even though they have zero evidence. It's not even at a basic logical level likely that the person is still there. They're convinced of it. And they're like, okay, what specifically would somebody be after? And Joda's like, I don't frickin' know. There's a whole bunch of crap stored here. So since Liliana's very old, very wise, she's like, okay, Bells and Locke would have sent somebody to steal something, I guess. What about ancient artifacts? Because he wouldn't want like some artificer's newly created device. He would want something very, very old. Okay, don't tell me that chapter 1 was a, what would you call it, a post-quill? Because it wouldn't be a sequel. It's like a pre-sequel. It's probably the Black Sword of whatever the hell. I'd say spoiler alert, but it was the first damn paragraph of chapter 1. So then Joda thinks he figured it out, and he's like, oh yeah, okay, follow me. So they go to one particular place with all this shelving, and he grabs a box and, lifts it down off the shelf, and he's like, ah, crap, it's empty. And Joyra's like, well, at least we know we were right. And Liliana's like, okay, what used to be in the box? And then, before Joda could answer, Shauna said, quiet. She tilted her head, listening. Someone's in here. Conveniently for the story. The power of story cannot be denied. Turns out it was maybe a student. It just says a young man in Tolarian student robes stepped out of the shadows and said, oh, I'm sorry, Magister, I was just working here. I'm Tom, spelled Thom, because of course, studying artificing with Dr. Arangi. And so Joyra's like, I have a nut of it. She's like, oh, today, with a pile of murder victims in the main laboratory? That's dedication. And then Joda just says, FYI, you're not one of the students assigned here. So then Tom kind of changes his story. He says, oh, I'm sorry, I helped carry the bodies in, and one of the healers said, more help might be needed, so I stayed, and I started looking at these books, and, time got away from me. It would seem he's acting, or as they put it, the young man seemed so innocent that he made Raph look like a jaded rake. That's cold. And then just now they buried the lead a little bit earlier. They said, oh, what's that in your hand? Honestly, that would have been just about my first question. And then he says, oh yeah, I just found this lying on the floor where the others were killed. And he starts walking forward, lifting the device up, and he says, I meant to tell the healers about it, and then boom, big old magical globe of death magic, as they put it, goes flying towards Joda. Oh, I wouldn't attack the Eternal Archmage. If anybody was able to dodge a spell, well, honestly, it would be Shauna. But, she wouldn't even dodge it. It would just bounce off her. She's basically Wobbuffet. Oh my god, I'm going to call her Shauna Fett. But anyway, yeah, the Archmage, really, let's read what happens next. Joda moves so fast that it was like she had teleported suddenly in front of Joda. Oh, really? Wow, she's actually gonna handle it instead of Joda. She flicked her fingers at the approaching globe. The air in front of her seemed to harden somehow, and when the globe struck it, it broke like a glass bauble. You guys know them baubles, they're always breaking. Apparently, Joyra is the new honorary Wobbuffet because the fragments of death magic globe, whatever the hell, bounce back at Tom, which is hilarious. So Gideon started running at him, but Liliana was faster because range magic is always faster. This is why melee is stupid. And it says purple bolts shot from her hands as the lines on her skin flared because, of course, they did. And she just, whacks him in the chest, but, on the way down to the ground, he casts a spell of his own, enveloping Liliana in a black cloud. Dude, that's when you roll a 20 on your concentration check right there. Hey guys, guess what? We've got a third Wobbuffet. Another death cloud flowed towards Gideon almost immediately, but his sword glowed golden with his shield spell and turned the cloud back at Tom. And as everybody knows, he who smelt it dealt it. So Shauna just bursts through the cloud because I guess you can't see through it and she wanted a surprise attack. And she slammed into Tom's chest, sends him flying, and Gideon steps forward to kick the magical device away from his hand. And so you recall Liliana actually got hit by the cloud of black death stuff, whatever the hell. And Gideon's like, yeah, all right, looks like you got hit by a spell. And she's like, I'm fine, a little dementia magic hasn't much effect on me. Okay, make up your mind, is it death magic or dementia magic? Maybe it's a death cloud of dementia magic, you guys. So they bring the Cabal spy down to be interrogated in a different floor, I guess, whatever. So Joyra and Joda basically are at each other's throats because of some comment that he made, so that lasted long. And then everybody's favorite character, Raph, says, hey, Captain Joyra, I have a spell that might help. And he glanced across the room where Dean Naban was glaring daggers at him because apparently he already knew what he was going to say. He said, I'm not exactly supposed to have this spell, but I think it could be what we need. It involves drawing individual thoughts out of someone's brain. If I cast it while someone is asking him questions, and Naban just comes over and says, that spell is forbidden for good reason. It's dangerous, something only master mages should even know exists. Well, Raph plays by Raph's rules, bitch. And so Joda wants to know where he learned the spell, and Raph just says, oh, well, I know as much as a master mage. I'm very advanced. He sounds like the type of person who would watch Rick and Morty. So Joda's like, okay, do you like serving on the Weatherlight? Because I could just leave you here. So then Raph's like, okay, sorry. I snuck a look at a book I wasn't supposed to have access to. Just the once. Sorry. So Joda and Naban are pissed, but Joda says, do you think he can actually pull off the spell correctly? And he's like, oh yeah, definitely. And she believes him, so she's like, try it. And then flash forward, and it says it was late at night when they climbed the stairs to the top of the tower where the Weatherlight was docked. Gideon found it a relief to see Tiana perched on a railing. How did it go? She called out. Okay, I probably could have cut that part out. We got our agent, Shauna told her, and the information we need. So I guess the spell worked. You know what that means? Raph's not useless. Yay. But keep in mind, guys, he's very advanced. So they're reviewing the information they gathered from the spy, and then they're like, okay, what's this black blade, which apparently was part of his memories. And Jorah says, well, it's a famous magical weapon, and it killed an elder dragon. Godsend is better. Oh, excuse me. Oh, and apparently I completely misread the history of Godsend and misinterpreted the artwork, which, I mean, come on, whose fault is that, really? I thought they took Heliod's spear, which was a spear, but it was really big, because he was really big, and then, broke off the tip and turned it into a sword. Apparently they turned it into a spear? Yes, they broke the tip off the spear and turned it into a spear. That makes sense. You can see why I thought it was a sword. Apparently, no, it is actually a spear. In fact, I think it was used by Isperia. I don't know. I didn't really read that storyline a whole lot. You know, let's just compromise and call it a glaive. No matter what we do know is Godsend is way better than the Black Blade. So after Jorah told them they killed an elder dragon with it, or somebody did, Gideon says, which one? And Shauna says, Piru, I think. And then he says, never heard of him. And Shauna goes, exactly. So then Liliana's like, okay, so this Black Blade, it would kill Belzenlock, right? So then Jorah goes, easily, but it's a soul drinker created with death magic. Okay, this is Soul Calibur. Like, how many different freaking lores are they going to rip off? Or wait, no, Fable. It's one of the two. I don't quite remember. Hell, I'll say Nox. I'm pretty sure that's what the little staff thing does from Nox. Anyway, Liliana was clearly intrigued, and she thinks a soul drinker would be just the thing. Perfect for killing a demon like Belzenlock. Yeah, so would like a super soaker full of like holy water. Just like go in there and wreck his face. But yeah, the theory is if it already absorbed the life force of an elder dragon, it should be more than powerful enough to do the job. And Gideon really wasn't surprised that she wanted to use it. Kind of sounds like her kind of weapon. Okay, that's what the story said. That's not what I'm saying. I've never seen her with a sword in my entire life. So she's more magic than, martial weapons. And so because Gideon is Gideon, he says, oh, no. A soul drinker is something we would never want to use under any circumstances. And then Liliana's just like, piss off, Whitey. So Shauna's just like, okay, well, anyway, it's locked up in the stronghold. We need to find a way in regardless of if we want to use it or not. So this chapter ends with Liliana sipped her wine. If we could turn all the cultists and clerics to stone, it would be easy. That is strangely specific. Just some weird lines and conclusion jumping in this story. It's almost like it's like missing parts or something. Anyway, she says, I was thinking about turning people to stone earlier. I don't know if that's like a joke or a specific reference. I don't know. And Raph grinned at her and says, what, like stopping time? If only we could. Once again, huge, ridiculously huge jump in logic there. No, I would think petrification magic. That's literally like abjuration / alteration. Time dilation is like its whole other class. Well, actually probably also abjuration, but still completely different. It's like non-natural. Temporal magic and elemental magic, no. So then Joyra smiled as if she had a secret she was ready to share. And she says, we can't, but I know just the time made you can. Let me stop you right there, Joyra. All Teferi does is phase stuff out, okay? He removes it from the timeline. That's it. That's not turning people to stone. But then again, nothing they said adds up or makes sense logically or is remotely what a human would say. But yeah, Teferi's like, oh, problem here, phase it out. Problem with a threat, phase myself out. Phase that out. Phase everything. Phase it out. Maybe it'll be better later, okay? You're a one-trick pony, Teferi, and you need to learn some real magic. My God, I don't care if you pull a damn rabbit out of a hat and then people clap for a little bit and that's your distraction. Just, like, we need to have an intervention for Teferi about phasing things out because he has some kind of weird fetish with it and it's becoming, like, an unnatural obsession. So anyway, that's the end of Chapter 5. I guess they're going to go get Teferi, which they honestly had said they were already going to do, and then Joyra just didn't. Literally, it was like that was the first person she wanted on her crew. Okay, and she's going to go gather up the crew, and we're sailing. Kind of forgot to pick somebody up there, didn't ya? So that should be interesting. Big ol' assault on a stronghold. And because drama and because story, I'll tell you right now, because they foreshadowed the tits off of it, I guarantee you Raph's gonna die. Oh, poor comic relief. I always want to say fat kid because I'm still picturing him from the Goonies, but no, he's pretty skinny in the actual artwork. But in our hearts and in our minds, he's still the comic relief fat kid. So can't wait for Chapter 6 to be out. I should probably check right now that it's not. Oh yeah, sweet, it's not out yet. But there's a spoiler artwork for it, and it's a giant statue of an angel. So that's possibly not even related. So watch for that, hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss it, and hopefully my head stops hurting. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody, and I'll see you next video.